Frank walked into a dealership outside Columbus last spring with a check in his pocket. $41,000 saved slowly on purpose over 3 careful years. He was 66. He'd never financed anything in his life. He told the salesman one sentence, "I'm paying cash." He wanted the best price on the lot. He got a good number, or so he believed. He shook hands. He drove home proud, the way anyone would after finally treating themselves to something nice on their own terms. Cash on the table, no debt attached to it. 6 weeks later, a friend who actually knew cars looked at his paperwork and went quiet for a moment. The kind of quiet that tells you something before a single word gets said. Frank had overpaid. Not by a little. By almost $3,000. Not because he negotiated badly, not because he was careless, because of the 4 words he said at the door, before the negotiation had even properly begun. This isn't really a story about a car. Stay with me, because what happened to Frank happens to disciplined, careful retirees constantly, and almost nobody explains why until after the money's already gone. Here's what most retirees believe, and it sounds completely reasonable. Pay cash, skip the interest, avoid the finance office, save money. It's exactly what a lifetime of good financial habits taught you to do. The same instinct that helped you pay off the house early and stay out of credit card debt for 30 years. It's almost entirely backwards, and once you understand why, you'll never walk into a dealership the same way again. Think about a plumber for a second. Pay a plumber in cash, and he skips a card processing fee, so he can pass a little of that back to you. A dealership works nothing like that. When you pay a dealership in cash, you're not saving them a fee. You're removing their single biggest profit center from the entire deal. And here's the part nobody warns you about. They don't just accept that loss quietly. They make it back somewhere else. Every single time. To understand why, you have to see what's actually happening behind the sticker price. Because there are at least 5 profit streams built into every new car that never show up on any number you're handed. Not the sticker, not the invoice, not the printout you brought with you from an online pricing guide. First, there's a manufacturer payment called dealer holdback, roughly 2 to 3% of the sticker price, paid to the dealer once the car sells, no matter what you paid. On a $40,000 car, that's $800 to $1,200, guaranteed, before negotiation even starts. Second, manufacturers pay dealer cash incentives when a certain model isn't moving fast enough. You'll never see this number. It simply isn't disclosed. Third, there are volume bonuses, sometimes called stair-step bonuses. Sell enough cars in a quarter, and the manufacturer cuts a check that can run into 6 figures. This is exactly why prices soften near the end of a month or a quarter. They're chasing the bonus, not being generous. Fourth, regional rebates quietly drop into slower markets to keep inventory moving. Fifth, floor plan assistance covers the interest a dealer pays to keep cars sitting on the lot in the first place. Add all 5 together on an average vehicle, and you're looking at $1,500 to $3,000 in profit you never negotiated, never saw, and never heard mentioned once. That's before a single word gets said about financing, warranties, or add-ons. It's simply the invisible foundation the entire deal sits on top of. But that's only the first layer. Here's where almost every retiree gets quietly outmaneuvered, and it isn't in the showroom. Once you agree on a price, they walk you down a hallway into a small office and introduce you to someone with a title that sounds administrative. They are not administrative. In many dealerships, this person is the single best salesperson in the entire building, and their only job is to add roughly $2,500 of pure profit onto your deal. Here's the asymmetry nobody mentions. This person runs this exact conversation 10,000 times a year. They know every hesitation, every objection, every version of the expression you're about to make when the paperwork slides across the desk toward you. You'll buy maybe 5 or 6 cars across your entire life, 10 if you trade often. That's not a negotiation. That's a professional sitting across from someone who's never played this particular game before and likely never will again for years. We know roughly what that small office earns because the big publicly traded dealership chains, the ones that own hundreds of locations, are required to report it. Their numbers are public, and they're consistent. A loan reserve markup, where you qualify for 4% and they quietly write the loan at 5%, pockets around $600 per car. An extended warranty, most people never read the fine print on, adds $700 to $1,000. Gap insurance adds $200 to $400 more. A handful of protection add-ons, wheel coverage, paint sealant, floor mats, tack on another few hundred. Documentation and filing fees on paperwork you're required to sign anyway add another few hundred beyond that. Altogether, the average finance office profit on an average customer runs $2,600 to $2,900. Before I show you exactly how that twist plays out, and the simple move that flips it in your favor, if this kind of quiet, easy-to-miss retirement leak is useful to you, take a second and subscribe. This channel exists to catch exactly these kinds of things before they cost you real money, not after. Now here's the twist, and it's the whole reason Frank overpaid. The moment you announce you're paying cash, you've just told them every dollar of that finance office profit is gone. So they have exactly one lever left to make it back: the price of the car itself. That's not a coincidence. That's the entire mechanism. Cash buyers overpay because cash removes the profit dealers were counting on collecting somewhere else. Before I give you the actual counter move, it's worth zooming out for a second, because this pattern isn't unique to cars. A kitchen remodel, helping a grandchild with a down payment, a large unplanned medical bill. Every major purchase you make in retirement has ripple effects most people never trace, into your taxes, your required distributions, and sometimes your Medicare premiums 2 years later. Most retirees don't see any of it coming until the bill shows up in the mail, long after the decision itself felt finished and settled. There's also one more layer of pressure happening before you ever meet the finance manager, and it's worth knowing about. The moment you walk in and fill out that first simple form, name, address, cash, or finance, you've already been quietly sorted. If you check finance, the salesperson often starts your loan paperwork in the background before you've agreed on a single number. By the time you reach that small office, you've confirmed several times that you intend to finance, and reversing course at the last minute rarely works in your favor. Understanding that sequence in advance is exactly what lets you use it rather than get used by it. So here's what actually works, and it's simpler than it sounds. Don't announce cash at the door. Let them believe you're financing and negotiate the price the same way a financing buyer would. Then, once you're in that small office, negotiate every single line item: the rate, the warranty, the gap insurance, the add-ons. Every one of them is negotiable, even though nobody will volunteer that. Ask directly whether there's a loan origination fee or a prepayment penalty. If the answer isn't written down under finance charges, it doesn't exist. Here's the key most people miss. Most dealership loans carry no origination fee and no prepayment penalty. That's not generosity. That's by design, because their profit was never really in the fee. It's in keeping you financed rather than paid off, which means you can do something almost nobody does: sign the loan, drive the car home, then pay it off in full the following week. You preserve every ounce of negotiating leverage on the front end, and you owe nothing extra on the back end. But here's where it actually gets interesting, because paying it off immediately isn't always the smartest version of this move. Right now, plenty of manufacturers are offering promotional financing at 0, 1.9, or 2.9%. A high-yield savings account today pays close to 4%. Sit with that for a second. If the manufacturer is lending you money at a lower rate than your own cash is earning, you're being paid to carry that loan a little longer. Every month you hold it, you come out slightly ahead. There's a second advanced move worth knowing, especially if that cash is coming out of a traditional retirement account. Pulling $40,000 out in a single tax year can push you into a higher bracket, and 2 years later, it can quietly trigger higher Medicare premium surcharges you never connected back to the car sitting in your driveway. A single well-intentioned all-cash purchase can cost you real money in taxes you never saw coming, arriving as a surprise line on a Medicare notice long after the car itself is old news. Financing the car instead lets you spread that withdrawal across 2 or 3 tax years. Same car, same purchase, a meaningfully smaller tax bill, and one less unpleasant surprise waiting in the mail. None of this is about being clever for its own sake. It's about understanding that the system quietly punishes cash buyers, and this is the simple, legal, fully above-board way to stop it from punishing you. Here's what I want you to sit with. In retirement, every dollar you don't lose to a leak like this is a dollar your portfolio never has to replace. $3,000 on one car doesn't sound dramatic on its own. But most retirees buy 2 or 3 more cars after they retire. And once you factor in 20 years of lost growth on that money sitting invested instead of handed over at the dealership, you're looking at a number that's genuinely worth protecting, often quietly worth more than a year of careful budgeting elsewhere ever saved. The retirees who end up most comfortable aren't always the ones who saved the most to begin with. Often, they're simply the ones who stopped the small, quiet leaks everyone else assumed were unavoidable, the ones nobody else even thought to look for. Frank still drives that car today. He laughs about it now, mostly, though he'll tell you straight-faced that he wishes someone had pulled him aside at the door and told him what those 4 words were about to cost him. That's really the whole reason for this video, so that the next time it's you standing in that showroom with a check in your pocket, you'll already know exactly what to say instead. If this changed how you'll walk into your next dealership, that's exactly the kind of quiet money mistake we dig into here every week, the ones nobody warns you about until it's already too late to fix.